Welcome to my world, the world of a medical laboratory scientist. Health is wealth, knowledge is power. Dysbiosis and palpitation. Dysbiosis is it's not a disease, it's a situation where the balance of the stomach, that is the various organisms like viruses, bacteria, fungi that are residential there and beneficial. The word beneficial is very important. Are beneficial to that place, and it is established for everybody. So you are in a state of ease, no problem. So it is not. It's a kind of a state of imbalance. That is, there is a condition that can trigger of other situation. So when the normal protective organisms of the stomach is disturbed or deranged rather, then you have dysbiosis. This dysbiosis is what can be established as even when you are able to now see some pathogenic organisms like Salmonella and Shigella in the stool of such a person, because it must have caused the person dysentery or diarrhea according to the species of the bacteria. The other aspect is palpitation. Dysbiosis can trigger palpitation, and that is what shall be established, because when you have a situation where there is dehydration, where there is a problem for the heart, then there can be triggered this palpitation. How it triggers is shall be more established in the slide session. But what role as a medical laboratory scientist in dysbiosis and palpitation? That is what I shall also expose, because the medical laboratory scientists, like I earlier mentioned, when there is dysbiosis, especially where the pathogenic organisms are involved, then you are easy to say that the person has dysentery or diarrhea is as a result of this bacteria. But when it's parasites, there are hookworms, ascaris, lumbricoides, and all these other ones that could cause problem too. That dysbiosis, and it will now come out as diarrhea as well. Even rotaviruses, when you are talking of children, you have some viruses that reside there too that will cause this problem. You have also lambda that is it's more of parasites. It's a parasite, I mean, not the less, and it causes this diarrhea. But the dysbiosis is that situation where there is a displacement of the beneficial organisms in that area. So it can trigger all these other problems, and how it triggers is I shall expose in the slide session. So join me as I move into the slide session to explain dysbiosis and palpitation. The outline: objective introduction, triggers of dysbiosis, microbiota and palpitation, laboratory diagnosis recommendations. The objective: to create more awareness of dysbiosis. What can trigger dysbiosis? The relationship between the triggered dysbiosis and palpitation. Laboratory investigations to rule out the condition or diagnosis of both, and recommendation. The introduction. Dysbiosis is a disruption in the normal balance of the microbiome. Resident organisms of a healthy gut, usually characterized by a loss of beneficial microbes that we usually call normal flora, and an overgrowth of harmful ones. These harmful ones now cause serious damages to the intestine, villi, and what have you. It is typically caused by external factors such as antibiotic use, a poor diet high in processed food and sugars, chronic stress or illness. Symptoms are often broad and non-specific, ranging from bloating, gas, and fatigue to skin issues, but they frequently overlap with the specific diseases they are contributing to. The trigger of dysbiosis. The main
Factors that disrupt the natural balance of one's microbiome include medication, just like I earlier mentioned. Antibiotics are the most common cause, as they indiscriminately kill both harmful and beneficial bacteria, even when you are using it for not abusing it. You find most broad spectrum affecting everything. Long-term use of proton pump inhibitor in acid inhibition and immunosuppressants can also alter blood flora. Dietary factor. Diet high in refined sugar, processed food, as mentioned earlier, promotes the growth of harmful bacteria. But if there are fibers, you find the situation also helpful in helping to process the stool. Lifestyle and stress. Stress is a very important factor, as you will see in the next slide. Chronic psychological or physical stress affects gut mobility and weakens the immune system. Sleep deprivation and lack of physical activities further exacerbate this imbalance. Environmental toxins, exposure to chemical, including the pesticide and so on and so forth. These are all factors that contribute, that triggers dysbiosis even in people. So it's not that dysbiosis itself it's not, no, it's not something, it's not a phenomenon that just happened, but it is by external factors that really cause this disturbance of the equilibrium. Let's dwell more on the microbiota and dysbiosis. When you're talking of microbiota, this is just this general population of the demographic situation of the microorganisms in your body. The proper way to look at it is that these are helpful microbes that helps maintain a very healthy state for every individual. But when they are disrupted one way or the other, you now find a situation where it could trigger other diseases. And that is where the emphasis is now on. That majority of these problems, even if you factor stress, if you are stressed, there is that psychological problem. Some people may just be totally disturbed that they could start pooing or things like that. These some will even tell you there is stomach in my tummy and stuff like that. So let's look at dysbiosis as a condition that affects the microbiota. Creating a distressed microbiota. Research on distressed microbiota reveals a crucial bidirectional link between the gut and the brain, known as the microbiota gut-brain axis. Chronic stress and psychological distress deplete beneficial anti-inflammatory microbes. These anti-inflammatory microbes do not allow inflammation, so you don't find a situation where you start experiencing diarrhea and dysentery, all the discomfort, swelling, and even palpitations that could come from the gut microbiome is highly sensitive to external stressors, trauma, and psychological pressure. When an individual is under chronic stress, the following biological chain reaction occurs: nervous system response. Stress activates the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, altering gut mobility and reducing blood flow to the digestive tract. Heart palpitation can be linked to the gut microbiota through inflammation, metabolic byproducts, and the nervous system. An imbalance in gut bacteria, dysbiosis, can release pro-inflammatory markers, and which the laboratory can also help check if you are probably wanting to know whether there is dysbiosis using the pro-inflammatory marker. Increase oxidative stress and affect how your heart electrical pathway function. Several mechanisms connect the digestive system to an irregular heartbeat. There is also the that is trimethylalanine, and the high level of TMO are known to cause inflammation and are linked to an increased risk of heart rhythm disorder. So that could be another way of testing in the laboratory. Histamine intolerance. Some gut bacteria produce histamine on their own. So if you have them resident there, they can be normal flora. If your body cannot break this down properly, often due to an imbalance or enzyme deficiency, it can trigger symptoms like an elevated heart rate and palpitation, particularly after eating fermented foods and stuff like that. Yes, laboratory diagnosis. Macroscopic examination and microscopic examination of feces can give the necessary information of gut dysbiosis because, if healthy, it has the regular microbial ecosystem. There are machines now. You can also use the quantitative PCR, where you want to know the ratio of these various fungi that are expected to be in normal stool, fungi, the bacteria, the viruses. So once there is a disproportionate situation, then there is dysbiosis, which can lead or trigger other conditions or diseases situation. Heart palpitation typically targets underlying triggers like electrolyte imbalance, which we have exposed to, and all these other things. So the laboratory could test for those things, so hormonal irregularity or anemia. Common tests to rule out dysbiosis are complete blood count for anemia and thyroid panel for overreactive thyroid and electrolyte. So once this you want to rule it out, you can also use it to know whether there are other conditions that are predisposing to that palpitation. We know that severe anemia makes your heart work harder to deliver oxygen, which can cause it to beat faster or irregularly. So somebody who is anemic will also show that. Finally, the recommendation. It is very simply just avoiding those things exposed earlier as causing distress for your gut microbiome, like stress especially. It's also advisable to avoid abuse of antibiotics, and it is recommended that stool examination is done when there is a chronic gastrointestinal disturbance. Fatting is high with Giardia lambda and intestinal parasite. When you are finding it too hard to poo for many days, you need to visit your gastroenterologist for treatment, because at times that could be a blockage. And when you're talking of blockage, you are already thinking of cancer, colon cancers, and the rest of it. Probiotics like Lactobacilli reuteri are very useful, and because they are beneficial if one takes it and create that necessary balance that would return the gut into the healthy situation. Is also very useful. Comprehensive digestive stool analysis using QPR, CR that I have already explained, to identify the specific type and the ratio of bacteria, fungi, and parasite living in one's gut is also a way of probably regularly checking, so that when you don't have any of these disturbances around that area, the chances of coming out with some of these chronic diseases is minimal. That is the latest finding.